things are shifting more rapidly and quickly than everything, right? Look at the world. Everything changes in 24 hours practically. And so the idea that things are not shifting quickly in the church would be, I mean, obviously we know it is, but it could shift more quickly even, just because that's just the way things are going. And we're discovering that's inescapable. So we could embrace that and actually plan for a future rather than just letting things happen. So it could be encouraging to say, how is Jesus calling us to follow him in radical ways and empowering young adults in ways that we accompany and give them tools, and not just say there's a rec room you can go hang out in, which is great too. Everyone needs spaces for that, but actually could be leading the way with accompaniment. Not like we made a mess, now you clean up our mess that we can't figure out. Not that, but we're in it together.
That vision of sort of leading the way with accompaniment, right? That we don't sort of wash our hands of the church and say, okay, young adults, you do with it what you can, but that we find the ways to to step aside so that others can step in, but we continue to walk alongside.
I hope that we really truly can become a multi-generational church of, people where people actually do feel like we are all the present of the church.
My hope is that the young adults that come feel like they are welcome, they're loved, they know that they're a child of God, people see leadership skills in them and gifts in them and open up the spaces for them to explore that. There's relationship building, there's all those good things that can make us really good church for each other.
Going back to that baptismal phrase of the ministry, the mission we share. And I guess my hope is that this church continues to be a church where people of all ages can live into what we say those promises mean, and that we'll be nimble enough to adjust to be the church that the next generation can be, stays part of, I guess.
I hope they can be patient with us and persistent, and walk alongside us and teach us.
Hope that we can be patient with each other as we try to work on this together. But also hope the young adults are patient with us as we maybe try to work a little bit and find ways to be supportive.
Persistence goes with patience, because young adults can be patient and they can tap us and tap us and tap us. I think both are important.
I hope to see a young adult bishop in the ELCIC by 2030. Concrete goals. Let's get there.
That we listen to the hard stuff and hold it and apologize when we can, and just hold space for that.
I hope that when we hear or encounter young adults with those kinds of stories, that we don't minimize them, and that we don't compare them to our positive experiences. That we don't disvalidate them, but that we own that their experience of the church is valid.
We need to learn not to rush to say, but we're different, not all Christians. Because those experiences are so real and so damaging and it's so in need of care.
Yeah, I mean, part of accompanying someone might be not seeing them for a while, right? But then saying, oh, we're still here, or we're still, oh, the door is always open, and we're still here to be in relationship with you as a sign of God's commitment to you as well, right? So yeah.
That, if we could get out of our own way enough to as Anne said, hold that space, and do it respectfully enough that when and if those young adults, people who have had that experience of any age, are ready to see if maybe there is something for them in the church that we're considered trustworthy enough that they might check us out to see if that's a place they might find it.
I also hope that we empower people to encounter God and love outside of the church, and that we sort of release them to experience the good news beyond our own structures. Because if it's just about like getting them to come to us, then that's not particularly helpful. But if we trust that God can encounter them even outside of our own structures, and we remind them that God is encountering them in the midst of wherever they are, whether or not they choose to be part of our structure, I think that's really important.
As you say, we're not just waiting for Clay every 2 years or whatever it is, but if in our synods and regions, if we have capacity to organize more regular events. I mean, campus ministry has a bit of that structure where I am, where you can do retreats or you can do more regular. There's a weekly meetup with students. So if there's capacity for that, that would be a way to invest in young adult ministry. So we really just need that kind of support, whatever that might look like.
I think young adults are often, I think it's a demographic that's often kind of not focused on in terms of church things, because it's it is an unstable time, and people are moving around, and they're maybe going to school, or they're maybe figuring stuff out, or they're moving, or they are at protests 8 hours a day and they don't have, that's and that is a blessing, right? That the fact that this is a time in people's lives when they don't have this, like, rock solid stability, and they're not bogged down by all the woes of capitalism. That's an asset and a resource to, and like a vital chapter of the life cycle that we as a group of people of faith miss out on if the only place where those conversations and questions are happening is on campuses.
That we will continue to find ways to bring young adults into the conversation with us, so that we don't have, so that we just keep talking about it, because I think if we keep talking about it, then we keep talking about it, and that's good.
One thing I experienced, I served as a Lutheran pastor in the ELCA, and that synod had an assistant to the bishop for youth ministry, and lo and behold, they had one of the best youth ministries around, because they had like 8 giant events per year for middle school and high school. And so it's investing in those events,
Finding those connection points and those opportunities that we were so able to have. And so how do we keep nurture those things, those possibilities, and get creative about how do we lift up young adults and connect? It was when you have those moments where you can connect across, even this conversation, right? We're across Canada. How do we make those things happen more?